exciting. I'm sure we'll make things go a little bit more smoothly in the future. But anyway, so come back and join us for our panel discussion here in a few hours. That will be on John's channel. My name is Doug. My website is djprod.biz. You can find me there. So you can join us.
And welcome to another episode of Tech Condo, and especially on Stream Day 2022. Really appreciate you for taking the time to be here live and direct. I see a lot of familiar faces, but also some new faces here. So I really am looking forward to, talk to you about switchers. I've lined up quite some slides for you. I do see some people, and I just want to acknowledge that those people are live and direct here in the studio. So first and foremost, another camera channel you won in the sense that you were the first one that was actually live on this channel. I also see my friend from Canada, Jason. Welcome. Another camera channel as well, of course, Eric. Regular here, of course. Photo Joseph in the house. Cool of you to be here. I see Carl in there as well. Jamie is also in the house. Welcome. Appreciate you for being there here. David, who will be after me, is also in the house, which is really cool. And a lot of other people that are coming in, so it's going so fast that I cannot even catch up, which is totally cool. I'm just gonna say hi to you guys like so. All right, great of you to be here. All right. Switchers, we all need them, right? If you want to make a video production, you really want to have a switcher. If, by the way, you want to have your question answered, please go ahead and write a Q before the question so that I can see it more quickly. I have a full-on program for you. We're going to talk about software switchers. We're going to talk about hardware switchers, and of course we're going to also a quick plug for the Stream Day event that John is organizing, and we of course are also contributing. So here to record.com/streamday, that's where you can find all of the people that are involved in this wonderful marathon broadcast. Okay, let's talk about switchers. Let's talk about that. So switchers, please be aware that the switchers that I will be talking about are the switchers that I actually have physically had in my hands, or via software or via hardware. So you will undoubtedly have a lot of other switchers that you also want me to talk about, but unfortunately, I want to talk about the things that I actually know a little bit more about. So that is the reason why it's there. Also, please be aware that even though I've tried to come up with a formula to make it a little bit more use case independent, it is always use case based. So I can tell you what I think is great. However, I do not always know what is the best for your particular situation. So use this as a guideline, a guide rail for you, but not so much the real end goal of your video. Then this is the way we're going to do it. So what is the formula? How are we all going to make this happen? Well, there are a few variables. The first variable that we're going to talk about is the production complexity. So how many cameras or inputs do you use? How much graphics assets are you using? The lower thirds, the buck, the video, video playbacks, that kind of stuff. Do you need remote guests, people that are coming in for a discussion like we will have at the end of this day? I know graphic effects, audio effects. Is that something that you really want to do? Well, that is something that I think is really adding to complexity. And a way to avoid having complexity is, of course, using macros. And some of the switchers that we will be talking about do have a macro or trigger setup for you. Then next to that, I'm going to talk about repetitiveness. What I mean by that is that some shows are really 100% are on that. This particular one, not so much, but if I do my Taekwondo show, then everything is timed out. I literally do not even have to press a button. I do today, but typically it's not the case. So that is something that will definitely be helpful to figure out which piece of software or hardware is best for you. Are you using it for conferences? And that might be something that is not so much all the time, but at least it's more regular, so you typically know what you need to do. And concerts or, bigger productions that are really ad hoc. In my case, for example, those are ad hoc. Then the last two things that I want to talk about is that the product complexity, and I'm really talking about the switcher complexity, to be honest. So is it easy to use? Is it understandable from the get-go? Is the graphical user interface great for software packages? Or is it very easy for me to understand if I have a hardware switcher? Middle, is it just kind of okay-ish, and then the steep learning curve, is it really something that if you look at it, you're like very intimidated? It's like, oh, this is so technical, I don't know what it is about. I'm referring to what Doug just did in his audio setup. It's like I was blown away with all the parameters that you needed to add. So that might be a steep learning curve for you as well as it's maybe for me. Then the price, and I just, it all depends on what you want to do, right? So there are prices that are below 100 euros or dollars, between 500 euros and dollars and 100 euros and dollars, and $500 and up. And yes, there are more expensive ones. So these are the parameters that I will be talking about. And let me very quickly check if there are some questions about the parameters so that we can continue. I do not see a question at the moment, so that looks great. Okay, then let's go ahead and talk about the software, right? So because I've been in the business for about 12 years or so, 10 to 12 years, I have been using quite a lot of different software packages. What I will be doing now is that I will be using the parameters that I just discussed, but I will also provide any value that this particular software package gives that, for example, another one does not give, or at least a lesser amount. That's what I wanted to say. So the first one is OBS. The open broadcast software, that's what it stands for. And looking at the price, it cannot be better because it's for free. You literally can go at the moment to open broadcast software and you can just click on it and it will be ready for you to go. It is Simple, really simple if you have a very simple production. So if you only have like maybe one or two simple scenes, it is quite easy to understand what is going on. However, it falls short if the scenes become more complex. And what I mean by a scene is the layered structure. So if you have multiple layered structures on top of each other and you also want to do some automation, it is all possible, but it becomes not very, you have to be very tech savvy to do that. I have to admit, it becomes better over time. If I look at it, where it was about 3 years ago, I would say that 3 years ago I did not even mention it in this video. But looking at where it is right now, I would definitely say, hey, it's quite okay. So check it out. It's ideal for YouTubers and simple talk shows that you don't have to switch quite a lot. And a minimum set of graphics, so maybe a bug or maybe a lower third, but don't do too much. I do see open broadcast software used a lot in combination, for example, with Atm switchers to present maybe some graphical overlays. So that is the first one that I wanted to talk about. But we're having, of course, more than that. And the second one is actually the one that started for me with everything. So this is the first application that I actually bought myself. It's Livestream Studio. Back then, and I'm talking about way a long time ago, it was stellar. It was really good. It was easy to understand, and it was a one-time purchase at that time. It was you paid €700 and basically got a dongle, and that dongle gave you a perpetual license. I still own that dongle, so I can use Livestream Studio whenever I please. However, at the moment, if you like to use it, it's quite an expensive amount. The price that you see here is not for 1 year, it's actually for 3 years. So all the prices that I'm mentioning are for 3 years, so that you get a little bit of a feeling on what the investment is for you. So it's $2,500. That is €70 or dollars per month, and that is quite expensive. I would definitely say that if you look at Livestream Studio, it is fantastic for conferences. It's fantastic for simple setups. Multi-camera, perfect. It can handle it great. It's even better than vMix of handling different frame rates. It's really good at that. It is stellar if it comes to the remote application that it has. So you can actually go into a web browser. You can hook up to that system, to Livestream Studio PC or Mac, and you have almost 90% exactly the same UI that you will have if you are if you're there on premise, which I think is really great. Next to that, and this is the one that I use it quite often for, the last one is that I'm still using it as my RTMP server, because sometimes I need to bring in a signal here, and this is for me extremely easy to do. So that is Livestream Studio. It's currently organized by Vimeo, and I also want to say that Livestream Studio, the developers are actually based in Ukraine, so you can imagine that at the moment there will not be too much upgrades, but definitely a good software package, but it's lagging a little bit behind if it comes to new features. That's my honest information. I do see some comments coming in. I will be talking about that once I'm done with the software packages. Then the Wirecast. In this case, I'm talking about the cheaper model of the Wirecast Studio. That's about €800 for 3 years. That means €600 for the license, and then every year you just pay €100 to extend that license. And very complex, a lot of different topics that you can do with it, a lot of features that you have at your availability. Actually, I would state it's really close to vMix, to be honest. But where it shines compared to, for example, vMix Call is the Rendezvous application. If you want to bring in, for example, 8 guests, and that's not the €800 version, it's actually the, on top of my head, 11 or 1,200 euro version. You can bring in 8 guests, and those guests can actually talk to each other. and you can actually say, okay, you can talk or you cannot talk or whatever. There's so much flexibility in there, which is great, especially if, for example, if you want to have this kind of a show where if you bring in a lot of people, then Rendezvous is a better option than, for example, vMix Call. At least that's my opinion. All right, next up. Yeah, well, we already talked about vMix, and I'm also using vMix as a matter of fact for this show. So 410 euros for 3 years, where 350 euros is for HD. Now, I happen to use the 4K version of vMix, but the HD is definitely the one that I would recommend for the most people. 350 euros for the license, then 60 euros for each upgrade, each version upgrade, which typically is about every 2 years at the moment, I would state. It has a steep learning curve. You have to really go into it to understand it. But once you know what it can do, I think for me it's the best. But it only works on Windows. That's the thing. What I really like about it is that it can handle multiple streams. It can handle a lot of different inputs. The audio bus technology that it has is unbelievably great. I use it all the time. So I for example, can have one audio device one audio bus for talking to my remote guests, and nobody else can listen to it. That's great. The replay on vMix is also absolutely stellar, and I know that, for example, here in the Netherlands they're using it for our curveball sports, which is typically, I would state, Dutch or Belgian, but it's quite a big sport over here, and they're using vMix on a national level over here, so that does give you a little bit of a feeling. One left to go, and that is, of course, we have been talking about Windows. Now I also need to talk about a Mac only, and that is Ecamm. 1152 euros over 3 years. That means 32 euros per month. I would say that has a steep learning curve. However, not everybody agrees with me. It might be that I'm so used to having a certain look and feel of my application, of a switcher, that I am pre-programmed to look for something which is not there anymore. So it might be just a training of my brain. However, I still put it on that. It's Mac based. It really drives perfectly on an M1 Mac Mini. So you do not have to have a big 1,500, 2,000 euro or dollar computer. You can actually do it with a lesser. For 800 euros, it will also work as well. So those were the software packages. And what I did now is that I actually put them all together in one graph. And I will also show that one full screen so that you can really delve into it a little bit. So as you can see, what I've done is that on the left-hand side, you see the complexity of the program, of the show, I mean. And below you see the frequency, if the show is frequent, so every week, every month, every day, or is it ad hoc? And in my opinion, then, for example, Livestream Studio is better at vMix, or better at ad hoc, because they have the flexibility to really make it work for you. It is very fast, so you don't have to have everything pre-calculated up front. Prepared, I mean, where I think that for OBS, I would say still it's really about simplicity and frequency, because it's quite difficult, in my opinion, to have a program that's actually usable compared to, for example, Wirecast or Ecamm. So this is, again, this is not my intent to provide you a tell-all that you know exactly what you can do and how it works, but at least I hope it will help you. I have just about 2 minutes of time to say hi to some people and to see if there are some questions. I do not see a question, I think, at the moment. So please go ahead and also talk to each other. It's very, very great to see a lot of familiar faces, but also new people. So that is awesome. If you are new to the channel, please go ahead and like this video, but also subscribe to the channel for future content. Okay, let's go back to the slide deck, and let's go to the hardware. The hardware is for me a little bit more difficult because, as I said at the beginning of the show, I only want to really talk about hardware that I actually have physically in my hands. And that is very, very limited, to be honest. So you will only see, unfortunately, only 3 hardware devices. However, know that I have been looking into other as well during my preparation so that I can compare them. But I strongly believe that these are the most capable units still, even though I've not touched the other ones. For example, there's a really nice Roland VR4H or something, but it's 3,000 euros, and it's very limited in my opinion, with just a few HDMI channels. And I was also looking into Panasonic and that kind of stuff, but really these 3 that I'm going to talk about right now are, in my opinion, the best for the price. And you know that the first one will become the ATEM Mini, right? Everybody knows the ATEM Mini over here, I believe. But you can also see there are 2 colors, 2 prices, to so to say. If you look at the original ATEM Mini, that is very limited to switching, and you can also use it as a webcam. You can have it for about 300 euros or dollars. And that will all go up via the so the ATEM Mini to the ATEM Mini Pro, to the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, to the Extreme and Extreme ISO, to 1,300 euros, which is quite a lot of money. That's seriously a lot of money. So let's talk a little bit about that setup. So if you look at ATEM Mini, you have the ATEM Mini, the ATEM Mini Pro, and the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, which is roughly the same setup. If you look at what it has, there's 4 inputs, where the Pro has the possibility to have a multi-view output, and it also has a recorder set in so that you can record the program out only, and you can also stream with it. Now the Pro ISO is the same as the Pro, but it also includes the ISO recording, which means you can record every single input as well. So that's 5 recordings that it has. And then the Extreme has 8 inputs, which looks like the ATEM Mini Pro, but that has 8 inputs, but also 2 outputs, which means that you can also, now next to the multi-view, can also have a dedicated program out, which is fantastic. And then the last one, and it's the one that I actually own myself, is the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, which allows you to also record all 8 inputs as well. I think they're really easy to switch with. They're easy to understand. And what I like about them is really that you can start immediately, and in time, using the ATEM software, you can build on top of it so that it becomes really great. What I also like about it is that it's perfect for volunteers, not only for YouTubers, but also for volunteers for churches, for example. We use it every single week for the churches. So yeah, that's great. And there's a plethora, one of my favorite words in English, a plethora of different control possibilities. You've got Stream Decks, you've got Companion, you've got a lot of different controllers. And after this show, then please go ahead and go to David's stream, because he will definitely talk about controllers in general. And I think that he has a lot of knowledge on that. So go ahead and go there for that information. Again, I will be looking into questions. I think that I have some time left at the end, so that's great. Next up, that's my new ATEM Constellation HD. I just arrived about a week and a half ago, and I finally put it into my 19-inch rack. It's fantastic. There are three models. The 1ME. I say 100, but I mean 1,000, obviously. So not 100 euros. Sorry, it's 1,000. That is, in my opinion, that should never be created. That's nothing. Don't look at that one. What is really interesting is the 2ME and the 4ME. The ME stands for mix effect. It actually allows you to actually utilize one single switcher as two separate switchers. Why do you want to have that? Well, you can do that maybe to add, for example, the additional switch for local TV screens or beamers or projectors, where you, for example, see the motion of a singer or a motion of a presenter on a big screen. It's called iMac, by the way, which is really a very interesting setup, especially for what I do with my switchers, because actually at the moment I actually use two ATM minis to get that done. Also here, it's easy to start. There you have multiple, but it's easy to start. But it is, I would state, a little bit more complex, especially if you see the ATM software control. It's like really intimidating for the first time that you see that. It's like, oh, okay, I thought that I knew that software, but it's like so much different buttons that you immediately see in front of you. But I really think that once you know what you're doing, it's quite easy to understand. And they're really meant to be easy to understand and also meant to be used for broadcast, which also means that it has a lot of different options to make sure that you're not making a mistake. Again, it's great software. The Constellation HD is great software for local television. It's also great for bigger events where you really need to do that iMac that I just mentioned. Again, this is also a great setup. Last but not least, the one that I did check out myself, but this one I do not own myself, is the Yolo Box Pro. It's sold here in the Netherlands for 1,270 euros. I purposely did not talk about the Yolo Box Mini or the Yolo Box because I really like what the Yolo Box Pro has to offer if it comes to graphics and audio, and it's just more future-proof. I think it's really easy to understand. You don't have to be technical to understand what it does. It's really drag and drop. So good for mobile streams on YouTube, for example. And you can still hook up different cameras. You can just put in a SSD card and run a video, etc. What I really dislike about Yolo Box, and it's actually the reason why I did not buy it yet, is that I want to also use it if I'm going to buy it as a webcam in. At the moment, you can use the webcam in. It will send out the picture. It will send out the audio, which is quite new, I believe. But it still doesn't do a great job with all the graphics on top of it, like videos and overlays and that kind of stuff, which I really don't like that. However, that being said, if you're streaming to Facebook or to YouTube or Twitch or whatever you like, then it's a fantastic set. And that's also the reason why I put it in here. So it's still there. So if you plot it again, then let's talk about that. So it looks like, this actually, you see that the Yolo Box is really for frequently set up. Actually, maybe not that frequent. Maybe it's also for mobile in this case. I see that the 2ME is really about complex productions, and the Mini is more for less complex, but also very, very good for ad hoc. Of course, you can also use it for frequent, so that's not meant like that, but I think that that's where the value is of this product. So that's what I'm stating. Then I have one, or actually two slides left. This one is actually to compare both the software and hardware together. And as you can see, it's quite on a nice diagonal setup. And there's, for everybody, there's something to work with. And the last slide that I have in front of me is considering the Wirecast and Yolo for the reasons that I just mentioned, and the purple ones are the ones that I actually have. That's all I have time for. I have to now say goodbye to you guys in just a minute. Let me see if I have one question that I can quickly answer to be on time, but I think there is no No questions at the moment. Then I'll see you at the panel. Have a fantastic day and a fantastic time with David right after this. Oh. And I need to work then, huh? Oh. Ah. Okay, let's go.